Okay, welcome to Social Proof, a podcast about influence brought to you by Soapbox. I'm Beth.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nate.
And we are really excited to be joined today by Jessica Serna. Welcome, Jessica.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yay, we're excited to have you as well. I have been fangirling over you for quite a while. We met, I want to say a year and a half ago when we were at a conference, a Texas travel conference as speakers together, which was really fun.
But she's not kidding when she says she's been fangirling over you.
Yes, it's true.
Like we meet with a lot of clients and oftentimes it's your Instagram grid that comes up and is the topic of conversation.
100%.
She's being legit serious when she says fangirl. It's kind of creepy. I'm not going to lie.
She's going to start to think I'm going to stalk her. Stop it, Nate.
It's so funny because I was fangirling over you and I was excited when we got to even speak at the conference together. I was like, what? I get to sit next to her? This is funny.
Did you put her up to this?
About me for a second. Like, oh, Beth.
She was. Well, this is going to be fun. I'm so excited to dig into your story a little bit. So why don't you share with our listeners just who you are and what you do, and just how you've come to be where you are today.
Yeah, well, so I feel like this goes all the way back to college. And I got a scholarship to study abroad in Spain, and that just changed my world. And I wanted to travel all the time. And then I got back home, I graduated, and I got a job. And when you have a job, 9 to 5, you get 2 weeks of PTO, and that really doesn't give you the time to really hop on multiple planes.
Right.
So I looked close by and I said, where can I go that's near that I can go for a weekend trip and still fuel that travel craving that I have, but, I still want to keep my job. I like my job. And I just found that I'm in Texas. I live in Dallas now, that there were so many things nearby. We have our own wine country. We have like these beautiful English gardens. We have places to go sand surfing. Like there's so much, just 2 to 4 hours of a drive away, a quick weekend getaway. And I would drag my boyfriend, now husband, along. And we would take pictures just for our own enjoyment. We wanted to capture these memories. And well, we're millennials, so we posted on social media. Didn't think much about it.
Yeah.
And he started asking us about how we were traveling so much and if we were working and how we were finding all these cool places. And then one day this brand just reached out to me on Instagram and said, will you post about our bike and we'll pay you? And I said, sure.
Yes, I can make that happen. Yes.
Yeah. And I was skeptical, but I posted the picture and they did pay me. And I was like, okay, I need to figure out how to do this.
This is a thing.
And then I met people who call themselves bloggers. And I said, well, I wrote 2 blog posts in college about my time in Spain. I'm a blogger too.
I love that.
And then it just all went from there. And I just would start posting about this. I learned all the tips and the tricks and the business side of it. And now I do this full time.
Amazing.
I'm so grateful for it.
Approximately when did you start building the travel brand?
So I'd say I started everything about 4 years ago. As far as the travel brand, it was kind of weird, like I said, I was traveling because I wanted to travel. And when I started blogging, like I said, a bike company reached out to me and I was ecstatic.
Yeah.
But then a face wash company reached out to me and I was ecstatic. And then makeup brush reached out to me and I was ecstatic because you're like, oh my gosh, these free things are coming in and all I have to do is post on social media.
It's amazing.
But that's when I was starting to learn about my voice and realizing that I had an impact and I had people who were actually following me. Like there people actually cared what I had to say. And so I started as, recording and documenting my travels. But then as I moved into this social media world, I kind of let these brands come in and dictate what I was posting. Not because I didn't genuinely love what they were sending me, but because I didn't know how to develop my voice when all these other brands were coming in and trying to tell me what to say with good intentions. And so it did take me about a year to kind of develop my brand and take a step back and say, why did I start this in the first place? I didn't start this to get scent-free products. That is a great perk, but I started because I wanted to share that there are really cool places nearby, and you don't have to quit your 9 to 5, and you don't have to hop on a plane every week to have an incredible experience. So I took that year and really delved back and then came back to it. So I say it's been 3 years of very intense focus on who that brand is, as focusing on that travel aspect as my main focus.
Yeah, I love that. And I should have called out when we started. So your brand, or your handle rather, on Instagram, as well as your brand, I suppose, is My Curly Adventures, with your fantastic curly, gorgeous hair. And then if I recall correctly, your husband has My Culinary Adventures, right?
Yes. So you get to be a team too. It's fun.
I love that. So have you built those two brands together alongside each other? I mean, talk to us a little bit about how that brand has evolved.
Yeah, we started with my account, but both my husband and I are huge foodies, and as we're traveling to all these places, we're also capturing the food, and they go on my blog, but we're like, man, we wish we had another place to document just the food, because that is a part of connecting. That is a part of the travel experience. When we get to a place, we're looking for what's unique, what's one of a kind. And so my husband was like, well, I can post the food. And so I post more of the travel photos, but he posts more of the food. And so it's been really great to have that connection. And it's nice because we do a lot of feeding off of each other. So I post about him, he posts about me, and just continues to, I guess, build our brand together.
I love that.
Yeah, me too.
Super fun.
I think we hear a lot of stories, working with lots of influencers that kind of start similar to you. They have a passion. They weren't intending to be an influencer, right? They just kind of built, they were kind of true to their passion, and opportunities came their way. And I think I've heard some of that from your story. But now that you have this thriving business, right? Because it is a business now at this point. You do this, you don't have a day job. We just discovered, like, you do this full time. How do you stay kind of authentic and true to your voice and manage, like, your own passions and sponsored content passions, and being true to the brand voice as well? Because I guess, to give you a little context, we have, listeners on here that are both influencers, but also marketers and, shopper marketing teams. And, I think there can be this kind of misnomer, or this kind of misconception that influences, not as authentic or true to itself as it used to be, or that it, that it could be. And so how do you kind of combat that? How do you stay true to yourself out there?
Love that.
Yeah. I think the biggest value that I can provide for my community and the brands that I work with is, in every campaign that I'm shooting, is making sure that it's true to why the people who follow me are following me. And so they're following me for, my travel tips, for these cool destinations, for my curly hair, or to get like a little glimpse into like my life with my husband. And so I'll give an example. So I worked with a face care brand before I knew how to be true to myself, and after I knew how to be true to myself. And I loved the face care brand both times. The difference was I didn't know how to project that. So the first time I stood in my bathroom and showed the face mask, my community could care less. They're not following me for that.
Right.
But the second time I took them to a hotel, and I stood in this really pretty hot tub, and I took a picture with this face mask. And I think the thing that was there was people were following me for the travel, but now they got exposed to the face mask because they were excited to see something one that was different. Yes, it makes more sense. You're probably doing your face mask in your bathroom, but we already expect that. It's unexpected to see it in a hot tub. So they pause for a second because they're like, you're in a hot tub, but something's on your face.
Yes.
And then they're engaging longer because they came for the travel. So they're looking at, what is this place? Can I experience it? But then they're getting that exposure to the face mask at the same time, and they're reading the caption longer. And I think that's what's really important, is making sure that it fits your brand. And sometimes that's going to look different for every person. It's not that I can't post about face masks, even though that's not my main thing. It's just that I have to post it in my context and in my story, which is, traveling how, well, traveling is hard on my skin. So that's something that's important to manage, and how can I add it into my lifetime routine? And I think that's where there's opportunities to remain authentic. And then I think just also recognizing our expertises. So I've been very careful lately just to make sure that I'm not spreading misinformation as far as, how do I say, if like nutrition or something, I want to be very careful about what I'm saying is nutritious if I'm not a nutrition expert. And so anything, I'm actually making sure that I'm checking with trusted influencers who are actually experts in that field before I'm going to endorse a product where maybe I'm not an expert in. I think that's the two things I think influencers is really important, making sure that you're keeping to your brand and whatever you're posting, keeping it on brand, and then also just making sure that you can be knowledgeable about the product for that reason.
Yeah, that's great advice.
Yeah, I have a follow-up to that. That's great. You mentioned your audience and just, like, oh, that's not what my audience would want. That's not what my followers are interested in seeing. So how do you, like, as you grow your audience, stay in tuned to what they want and stay true to them? Like, do you have like tactics, or is it just like engagement based? Like you see like, oh, that post did not perform well, they must not like that. Or what do you do to kind of stay engaged and in tune with your audience?
Yeah, I think engagement is a really big factor. Seeing on what they're tapping on when you're posting in stories, seeing what they're posting about in the comments is huge. And then seeing, when you're posting in general, what they're commenting on and what they're liking and what they're saving. I found that to be really important.
I love that you're talking about these. I think you've got some really good tips and advice for anyone who's, building a brand, which I would argue most of us are, whether we, aspire to be an influencer or, simply want to have influence in, our day job or whatever the case may be. And it's interesting that you reference those products that started coming your way. I think it's very easy to get a little drunk on influence, right? When you're taking off and you're getting some attention. And to Nate's point, I think that's why brands can be a little hesitant sometimes, because they think, oh, well, this individual will talk about toothpaste on Monday and tires on Tuesday and, face mask on Wednesday. And so I love that you're bringing to life, the intention that you put behind building your brand and protecting the things that you talk about. And, we were laughing a little bit about the curly hair, but that is a real thing. I mean, man, I have a huge mop on my head today that I had to go pull up before we interviewed you because it was driving me crazy in our last session. And I mean, that's a real thing. People are buying into not just you as, kind of a celebrity, but they're buying into your lifestyle. And they see you as real and approachable, and that they could, kind of live parts of your life by understanding where you're traveling and what products you're using and those sorts of things. So I'm curious how, what kind of discernment you use in the brands that you work with. Do you turn opportunities down because you have kind of a mental checklist of what's on brand for you? What does that look like?
Yeah, so for me, the biggest thing when working with brands is one, making sure like they just align with my priorities, and that that their mission has something that I can back up as well. I think we're finding that brands are more than just brands now. They have their own personalities, and that's important as well. And then I'm looking for brands that want to work with me as well. So they don't just want my followers. They want my story, and they want my community. Because, like I said, if they just want me to post a picture in my bathroom holding up the product,
Right.
I know that's not going to work with my community, and my community is not going to enjoy that, and that messes up my relationship with my community. But if they'll let me put that product on my hike, or if they'll let me take that on the journey and let me have that creative flexibility, I can still provide value to my community while at the same time providing even more value to that brand. And so
Totally. Yeah.
I look for brands that understand that they understand that, like, I'm looking out for my community, but I'm looking out for them at the same time. But I have to do it in the way that's authentic to my community, that's going to help them be engaged with it, because I mean, it's only going to hurt everyone if I'm posting something that they're not going to engage with.
Completely. That's music to our ears.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because you use the term community, right? And we've built a community within Soapbox, of influencers in all 50 states who we work with, and we really take a lot of pride, I think, in that hand selection. When a brand hires us, we are the champions and the advocates and the protectors of their brand. And so it's our job to not just, find someone with a high following count. We want to find someone like yourself who is going to really resonate and is going to bring their creativity and who knows their audience. And Nate can probably dig into this farther because I know it's a passion of his, but we are often combating that desire in influencers to just grow their following, either to purchase followers or to participate in loops and giveaways that will bring fresh eyes in. And it's tough because influencers see people they admire doing it and they say, well, why not me? And Soapbox has really taken, I think, a very kind of harsh stance that is tough sometimes for influencers to understand, where we say, we can't hire you, we won't hire you if you are engaging in these sorts of tactics, because it's so detrimental. And I love everything you're talking about with how you engage and watch the stories and the comments. And so can you speak, I guess, a little bit to does that follower count and that growth matter? Does engagement matter? And how do you engage in both of those areas of growing your brand?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to lie. At some point, follower count is going to matter as a business. I want to continue
Absolutely.
growing my business, but it's not just follower count. And that's why I don't just rely on Instagram. That's why I have a blog. That's why I have an email list. That's why I'm on Facebook. That's why I jumped on TikTok as soon as I could. Actually, when we were at that travel conference,
Yes.
there was a gentleman there with the Canada Travel Tourism
Yes.
community,
He
and
was
he
great.
said,
Yes.
get on TikTok. And I was like, nah, I think those people are just dancing.
Yeah.
And he goes,
Yeah. Yeah.
he
He
goes,
was
no,
good.
you have to get on TikTok. So, I listened. And actually, it was through TikTok that I was able to grow on my Instagram as well. And so, and my blog brings in people from onto Instagram and, YouTube, they all just interconnect. So I do want to grow my Instagram, but I want it to come from people who want to follow me, who are going to engage in different things. I know for me, like personally, like I can't do a loop giveaway. They don't care about Texas travel. If they're trying to buy a free purse or a laptop, or get a free purse or a laptop. So I think that's really important. Is building it up, and it really does. It feels like a snowball. It feels like you're not making a lot of traction at first, and then just suddenly it all snowballs.
Yes.
And so it's just been crazy, even in the last, I'd say, 6 months, just how many people have said, how many more people have been like, oh, I love your blog, or, I've been following you for years, or even I tell my friends about you. And I'm starting to realize, like, those people have been saying that for a while, but that net has slowly been getting bigger until, maybe one person was telling their friends to follow me, but then those friends were telling their friends. And so now maybe 50 people are telling their friends.
At this point,
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's so true.
The consistency of saying who I was and remaining true to that, I think, was the biggest thing. As discouraging as it was watching other people just jump up in followers and wishing I could be there, it's nice to see how staying true to my brand has paid off.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, and I think, well, I think we'll see, those influencers that are being true to themselves and are kind of playing the long game and building their audience authentically. They're the ones that are going to last, right? And those are the ones that brands are getting savvier, agencies are getting savvier, and I think every week we develop new capabilities to detect some of these less than ethical practices at gaining followers. And the more the more capabilities that we have, the harder and harder it is to justify hiring some of these.
Yeah.
I won't outright call them fraudulent
No.
influencers, right?
Their intent
There's
is
still a lot
pure,
of
I think.
education going on that needs to go on, but we value so much the ones that aren't participating in loop giveaways, that aren't participating in, bot followers, that actually have real comments.
Right.
They're not just smiley faces, or like, you don't get 50 comments from some unknown country, where that's all the, like some of those red flags. And,
Right.
we hold on to those types of influencers. So yeah,
do.
kudos to you for, seeing that and, appreciating that.
Well, and even being picky, I think, in the brands that you choose is another indicator. We were joking about my stalkerish behavior with your brand. I kind of grew up, we moved around the world a lot, so I have an affinity for travel, and I love that you are, really you've built a brand around exploring your home state, which, as an Arkansan and someone who's very passionate about our state, I find that very relatable. But I noticed, can we talk about the little sort of project that I sent you toward recently? Is that public knowledge?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Okay. So I think this is really interesting, actually, because we were working with the state of Arkansas, the Department of Parks and Tourism, and they were seeking some travel influencers. And because I have a background in tourism, immediately you came to mind. I know that Texas is a big feeder state for Arkansas. Texans love coming to Arkansas and experiencing the lakes and the rivers and the mountains and the unique geography. And so you immediately came to my mind to recommend for this. And so I went out to your Instagram, and I think at the time, this is like, 6 weeks ago, max, you were around 70 to 75,000 followers. This is showing the depths of my creep. But it's my job, in my defense. And then as we were preparing to have you on the podcast, I was overlooking at your grid, and you're at 85 plus now. Is that right? So in 6 weeks, I've watched you grow by 10 to 15,000 followers. And I'm hoping it's going to be a ton more now that Arkansans are going to get exposure to you. Maybe you can talk about what you did with Arkansas.
Yeah, well, first off, thank you. That was amazing.
Oh, I'm so glad.
I got your email, and I still was like, oh, this is really cool. It's probably not going to happen, but like, it doesn't hurt to try. And we're getting on the phone call and talking through everything, and I'm like, oh, this is really cool. Like, it's nice to imagine it. And then it all happens, and we're there, and we're standing, and there's a film crew, and I like turned to my husband. I was like, I think this is real.
I love that. Well, I was adamant that they hire you because I knew you were perfect and your brand. And, again, it really speaks to the integrity and the work you've put into properly building your brand. That's our job now. It's to align you with, a brand or an entity where it's going to make sense. So tell us what you did. I know it was really fun.
Yeah, so I got to go to Bentonville, Arkansas, in Northwest Arkansas for a commercial that is going to go live in spring, promoting this backcountry aviation trip that is actually going to be an opportunity for a person to win this. So we got to be actors, it's crazy, and have a film crew film us essentially getting into these small backcountry planes, flying to different remote areas, getting to go zip lining and mountain biking, seeing these beautiful cabins, and really get to see like some of the most amazing parts of Arkansas in a really condensed amount of time. And it makes me just want to go back so much more. I was like, I didn't have enough time. And then so all this was to be filmed and will be promoted in the spring. And until then, we also get the social media side of getting to promote it. So I've already done a few posts, just documenting what it was like to be filmed and visit these areas and experience fall foliage, which, oh my gosh, there's so many reds in Arkansas. Wow.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Texas is okay, but Arkansas.
Yeah. I'm still waiting. We're starting to get our oranges here. We have like a very small area in Texas where we get fall foliage, but I don't think it gets as red as Arkansas gets, and also it lasts so much longer for you guys than it does for us. I think we get like a couple of weeks of vibrant colors, whereas you guys have like maybe a month and a half.
Yeah, it's
Amazing.
still pretty. I know you were here a few weeks ago, and I think this is a really cool kind of full circle. I know Nate has questions for you, so I promise this is my last one. I'll let you cut in on this dance. But it was so interesting watching that project come together for you and for your husband and the other couple who we also recommended. We love Logan and Kelsey, and I'm sure your community and followers may get to know them as well. But one of the things we talk about with our clients and with the brands that we serve, and I think they don't always believe us, it's not just you that I stalk. We truly know our influencers. We know our community. And when we're talking to a brand about what would make a difference for them, we're running through a mental Rolodex of people we know, and then we're reaching out and making those personal connections. We hand select for all of our programs. And for a few years, it became the trend for influencer agencies to really say, well, we have an algorithm or we have an automatic selection process. And well, of course, we have amazing software. But I think there's this important human element to what we do to find the Jessica or the Logan or the Kelsey who we know is going to be a brilliant fit for this brand. And they specifically said, we need someone who can be natural in front of the camera and candidly is not going to be, they won't be divas. They won't have their own ideas about, this is a commercial, it's scripted. And throughout the entire conversation, I was like, yep, I've got you. I've got the perfect people who are going to align with your brand statement. So for me, it's really fun to hear that full circle experience. And we heard wonderful things about you from Arkansas as well, from the agency, about what a delight it was to work with you guys. And so I think it's just, certainly I want to encourage you, but I want to encourage other people who are listening and trying to build brands that, it is a slog. It's a long slog, but the payoff can be so extreme when you do it right and you bring integrity to building your personal brand. So that's my little diatribe, my soapbox. So I'll get off it now. You can get on the soapbox, Nate.
That's okay. I want to stay in that same vein, but kind of pivot to more like your self-development. So, for you in growing this business, I'm sure there were some, hiccups along the way or roadblocks or things that you've had to figure out, some learning curve there. So number one, like what would you say is, or was some of your, big roadblocks that you had to overcome to building this business? And then kind of secondly, what resources do you use now to kind of keep your influencer game fresh? Where do you go for influence?
Oh, that's cool.
Who influences you?
Okay. So as far as roadblocks, like I said, one of them was just finding out who I was. And I think I know who I am, but finding out, I guess, where I provided the most value to my community. So there are a lot of interests that I have. We're multifaceted people.
Sure.
But what was that main thing that I can hold on to? And then from there, learning how to incorporate my other interests from that. So no, I'm not a fashion account. I'm a travel account. I mostly focus on Texas, but I can bring fashion in. I just can't post the same picture as a fashion blogger can. Or like, I really care about food. And I care about eating good food, but I also care about eating healthy. How can I bring that in? How can I bring all these different interests in, but staying true to that main thing of people following in? So I think that was a major roadblock that took a while. And it took me a while to figure out about an authentic following, to be, truthful. I have not been afraid to tell us before, but at the very beginning, I thought loop giveaways were perfectly fine, right? Like, real people are following me.
Right.
But then I had to watch my engagement plummet, and then I had to learn from people, and I had to spend hours going through my followers and figuring out which ones weren't like, my demographic.
Human.
Yeah, I had to spend a lot of time dealing with that. And then it paid off, but it was not fun at the time. And now just it is making sure that I'm constantly doing something new. I think even it took a while just to like spread my passion for traveling locally, because that wasn't something that was offered. So people were tuning into it, but it still was always this thing like, Texas is boring.
Mm-hmm.
I need to go somewhere far away. There's nothing to do. I think all of us, growing up, I lived in San Antonio. I was like, oh my gosh, my town is so boring. And it took a mindset change. And it took a mindset change, I think, in a lot of my community even, and the people who are following, to be like, okay, actually, Texas is cool. She had to say it 100 times, but
I got it.
So there was that. And then just, I think, learning from others has been a really huge thing. There's so many people that I do look up to. There's another Texas blogger, A Taste of Cocoa, and I really enjoy that. She's a blogger, but she does so much more. She is very business minded. So she has her own book. She runs pop-ups. She's helping businesses, and I just love. I think it's important not just to rely everything on social media, to find those different avenues to connect with people, and to, maybe they don't tune into Instagram that day, but maybe they pick up your book, or maybe they go support your business in another way. I think that's really important, to make sure that we're developing and building these multiple opportunities to connect with people, and to get your name out there. Another person I really enjoy, sorry, I follow a lot of Texas people, but is the Mon Project. And what I think it's so great is, it's really hard to develop events and to get people to show up to your events. Especially living in a town where there's so many different things going on. It's hard to get people to show up just because there's too many opportunities now. And so I think it's really great. I really look up to the way that she's built up workshops, she's built up these community events.
Fun. Yeah.
And people show up and people connect and build connections. And in a time where so many things are on social media, to have built something that's in person and now virtual, she's still building those connections.
That's awesome.
I think is something great. And I think influencers and all people can learn from realizing that social media is just one facet. I'm actually not too much fond of the word influencer, because I think that's
agree.
Well, everyone has influence.
Right.
My friend with 500 followers, because that's her personal account, can post a really cool restaurant, and I'll want to go. But having all the different business aspects, and being able to draw on from multiple ways and provide multiple opportunities of value to people is one of the best things you can do.
I love that. I think, you spoke to a couple of things that are really near and dear to us. And, I think it would be disingenuous to even, act as though it's not been this rocky road for you as well. I think anytime you're building something and trying to do it right, you're going to take 2 steps forward and 1 back. So I love that you brought up having participated in loops, because we don't want the influencers in our community to think, they're going to be ostracized forever if they make a misstep. But we want to just gradually educate and teach them to play the long game. They may do a loop, they may do a giveaway, they may, post a brand that actually is not in line with what they should be building or focusing on. And those missteps are going to happen, and it's not irreparable. But I think, ultimately, sticking with it, being ethical, I love that you said everyone has influence, and we agree. That's kind of the premise of social proof is, how do you wield that influence with integrity? And we don't mean just being a goody two shoes. We mean just how can you be really intentional about your personal brand and what you're building along the way, so that it becomes something that you can be proud of and that you can stand behind. And I also like that you referenced the word influencer. We laugh about that a little bit too, and struggle, because I'm now this elderly, quote unquote influencer. When I started, we were just bloggers, and then it became influencers, and now it's starting to shift, I think, to creators, content creators, or simply writers, which I certainly love. So something I'm curious about, is a couple of questions as we start to wrap up with you today, although we could talk to you forever, is, what are you consuming? And by that, I mean, a book, a podcast, an audiobook, a series. What are you either watching or reading in some way? Tell us about that.
Yeah. Well, I feel like I consume everything. I didn't get the chance to talk on this, but there was a point in my life before I even knew what blogging was, where I couldn't find a job. And I ended up getting a job that was not ideal, was not in my field, which I did not love, but which I had a lot of time to listen. And I consumed like 6 hours of podcasts a day,
Oh, wow.
while typing away at a computer. Well, it first started with Smart Passive Income by Pat Flynn.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I was just listening because I didn't know what else to do. I couldn't, like I said, I couldn't find the job that I wanted, but I had to be content with what I had. And I think spending all this time listening to business podcasts, I don't know why I didn't even think I wanted to start a business at this time. Listening to all this information, I think really set up the foundation for when blogging started to happen, because I had developed that mindset.
Mm-hmm.
I really like Gary Vaynerchuk,
Mm-hmm.
Gary V. I don't know, it's really hard to say his name. And so there's a lot of great things. I've been reading Think and Grow Rich, and leaning into the principles, which I think I value from that. I don't think it's all about thinking and growing rich, by the way. I think there's more to that book than I would say that. There's definitely things where maybe I don't agree with, but there's certain principles that I think are really important for just whatever you want in life. But now I think I'm starting to consume a little bit less, but really dig into what I learned about in the past and apply those principles, because it was a lot of information. I would say almost an information overload. And now I take a little bit more pauses to engage in this and then act on it versus before, where I was just building it all up in my mind.
I think we were talking about that book the other day. I think that's Napoleon Hill, maybe. I always get it mixed up, but Think and Grow Rich, which was written in the 30s. And I think it's a common denominator. In fact, I'm going to put Nate up in a minute here to talk about what he's consuming. But, I think it's a common denominator for people who are building brands or building businesses or are entrepreneurial, that they are voracious. I won't say readers, but consumers of content, whether that's podcasts or books, or they're curious by nature. And that's actually, it's a value that we have at Soapbox. I think within our team, we talk a lot about Ancora Amparo, right? That idea of I'm always learning. And I just love hearing what other people are consuming. It always gets my wheels turning. So I'm always in the middle of about 5 different books and podcasts and series because of that same tendency. But I've got one that's probably a little off center, but I'm listening to something called The Power of Ritual. And it's very interesting to me because I had spent a bunch of time digging into the idea of habits and habit formation and being more regimented. And, we were joking with you that we're Enneagram 7s, so we're big idea people and we're enthusiasts. And so I'm constantly trying to kind of manage myself and rein it in a little bit by having good habits. But this idea of ritual is very different from habit. And it's the idea of infusing meaning into what you do. So instead of maybe sitting down and eating the same breakfast every morning, which is a habit, you're infusing some meaning and some purpose into it. And you're getting joy out of looking forward to that meal because it's satisfying and you like it. And so you eat it every single day. And anyway, that's oversimplified, but I am just loving the book. It's Casper ter Kuile, and we'll link all of these accounts you've referenced and books and podcasts in the show notes.
And now she's pushing her rituals on me.
I am. I push everything I read.
Resentful.
Yes. You're not resentful. You're yes.
I'm no, I do not want to exercise every day. That's not a commitment that I can make with myself.
I've been texting him that he has to have good habits because we're around each other so much at work. If he has bad habits, I'm going to pick them up. So yes. What are you devouring?
They're not bad habits. They're just different habits. Okay? Let's not judge.
No judgment.
I'm a huge Audible person. I have a long commute, so I listen. There's several books going on at once. Right now, I really like because a little. I guess this is kind of nerdier, but it's called Building a Better Vocabulary.
I love that you're doing this. Yes.
On this podcast. Yes. Yeah, it's one of the great courses on Audible. It's taught by a professor, so it's almost like you're still in school, and you can't listen to too much at once because it's kind of overwhelming. But yeah, building a better vocabulary.
I
That's
love
like
that.
current
Yeah.
what I'm consuming. So
That's so interesting. Okay, any more questions for Jessica before we
yeah,
wrap
so
up?
I'm intrigued. If I saw one of these questions on here, I don't know that I'm putting you on the spot, maybe, but like a favorite quote. Do you have a favorite quote or like mantra that you live by, or like what inspires you?
So actually, I don't know if it's so much of a quote as just like a word. So I know a lot of people do New Year's resolutions. I'm terrible at them, but I think the word. And actually, my word has been the same for the past years. I don't know if it's a bad thing, but it's been kindness. Apparently, I don't mean to
Not a bad thing.
Pretty sure that's a good thing.
Pretty sure.
We're not trying again in 2020, but no, I just think there's a lot of room for kindness in every aspect, and to really look in the shoes of other people, and to see where they're coming from in all aspects. Giving people patience. I even know, when you're interacting with so many people, sometimes someone can rub you the wrong way. Sometimes you can rub someone the wrong way, and that causes them to treat you a certain way. And then it can just be this back and forth all over a misunderstanding. And so to me, it's really important to just constantly reach out for kindness, and to respect people, and to give them space to express themselves. And I think it's really, I've heard someone say like, oh, I'm actually a very shy person. So some people have been like, oh, like when I first met you, I thought you were rude, but it turned out like through multiple interactions of you being yourself but being kind, but you're still shy, but like, oh, you're actually kind. I just now know that you're shy. But if I had just let one interaction go negative, then there wouldn't have been an opportunity. Well, I've been off of assumptions. I studied psychology in college, and we do so many things. Like if someone does something that we don't like, we assume it's their personality. If we do something that we don't like, we assume it's a situational context. So if I'm late for work or something, my boss assumes I'm lazy. If I'm late for work, I assume, well, today my coffee wasn't in time. The other day, the traffic wasn't there. I'm stressed. There's all these different things. So just the more opportunities that we can extend kindness, I think is really important. And in the social media world, I still think it's very important. Sometimes I don't like the way a brand sends an email to me. And it's really important to realize, well, we're talking over email. Right. I don't know what their day was like. I don't know what pressures are going on behind the scenes. So maybe sometimes I want to respond really catty or really, I want to maybe respond the way that they responded to me, and that's not going to go anywhere. Right. So finding those opportunities to spread kindness forever, I think, is really important, and I feel like this is going to actually be my word for a long time, because I never have enough kindness.
That's right.
Yeah, I love that.
I do too. That's really neat. And it's interesting to hear that context. I think you've given some great advice there. I'm also laughing at the email I sent you about this latest opportunity, because I certainly do not keep it short and sweet. Flowery, flowing, if you
I don't know
send
if you know
emails.
this, but Beth has struggled with shyness for a long time as well.
It's a problem.
She can relate.
My concern is always, and I think I remember this at the conference we were speaking at together, my concern is always that I will overwhelm people. Literally, I'm like dialing myself back and saying, okay, let's take it down a notch so you don't terrify this individual. So
I'm very to the point sometimes. So I always have to remember small talk and all that. I'm shy and an introvert, but I'm also intense. So I get straight to the point, but it's also sometimes. So I actually have to step back. I'm like, did I write that too? Was that only one sentence? Should I add a couple more? And
should I add an exclamation?
No. Yeah. Smiley face.
Yeah.
Funny. I love that. Well, you have shared, I think it's really fun to just watch these conversations unfold, because you have intentionally or not shared I think so much that someone can take away and apply to building their own brand or just to their day job and being a good human and wielding their influence with integrity. So Jessica, thank you so much for joining us on Social Proof. We have loved it.
Oh, thank you. I'm so honored to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you, Jessica.
Yeah, we'll talk to you very soon and we'll see you on Instagram. Bye, Jessica.
Bye. Thank you.